Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about, I guess what Andrew Lincoln had to say the other day about, where he would like to take the next part of the Walking Dead story. Simplistic survival horror is sort of how he describes it, as he would like it to be much more, I guess simple in terms of the story and not so just like grand, that it was in The Ones Who Live. And I could definitely see that, there definitely is an audience for a lot of that. A lot of people do want, the scale of what the CRM was, the helicopters and all of that. But there's a lot of people who are just like, it just becomes a lot. And honestly, I wasn't expecting the response from that yesterday. And a lot of people seem to agree with Andrew Lincoln that they really want that very, again, simplistic survival horror. I feel like that's the best way to describe it, where it's just, surviving in this zombie world and literally bringing it back down to zombies and stuff. And the whole thing with this CRM that I will say, like, the part about it that originally was exciting for me was some of the cure stuff and getting into like variant walkers and all of that. And, the helicopter stuff, the CRM stuff, that wasn't, that was only really exciting because of that. But it wasn't, I mean, there's still connections there. It seems like there is still connections with the Primrose team and all of that. But I think a lot of that has to do with the triple P card. So again, there's still going to be those elements that are there. There's still connections with the variant walkers and all that in France. But that was always the most exciting part to me. The helicopter stuff and all of that was more of a mystery and more of a, I don't know, I always wanted just like what they were doing overall. Like that was the whole thing. If it was cure related or whatever it was going to be, that was the part to it that was always going to be very exciting. And I think that's one of the parts about the CRM arc that I'm definitely very disappointed in, is that overall it didn't really result in that. It seems like there is still connections there with like the triple P card, the Primrose team, and just a lot of what they were doing. Honestly, you kind of have to go and watch World Beyond to really learn about a lot of that. But Daryl Dixon seems to be introducing the whole variant walker thing. And I mean, they already introduced it, but it seems like that could be the next step here. So I wanted to focus on that. I really wanted to focus on, what Andrew Lincoln said here and get into what exactly that could actually be in the Walking Dead universe here. And yeah, just get into some ideas there. So before going any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, again, yesterday what Andrew Lincoln did say was that, if there were another opportunity to tell the story, I quite like the idea of paring it right back down to the basics again. And, later on saying that he wants to bring it back to that, to sort of pare it back down and bring it back to the very simplistic survival horror that it essentially always was, and having the characters feel compromised again and all of that. And again, you hear a lot of that and you're very, very excited. And it's very interesting because he also talks about, maybe like if he were to sort of direct it, direct an episode, I'm guessing, or so. I think that is something that he wants to do, that this is something that he actually, plans to do in the future. I don't know when. That's the whole thing about this here. And I think that's what a lot of people are wondering about right now, is that Andrew Lincoln's talking like this. Like, I don't think you can say that Andrew Lincoln is done with Rick Grimes, that Rick Grimes' story is now over. Like, there is just absolutely no way, because even when the show ended, they were just like, well, we'll have to wait and see this and that. And yeah, if the story was right, whatever, this and that. Like, they're being so open with it, even with the promotion of the show, like just the show being on and all that. And like, even now, like, it's been months since the show's ended and Andrew Lincoln is still talking about where he wants the story to go. So I just really look at it like, I think that, I think he's going to focus on some other things. Apparently, there's other roles that he's doing right now that he's going to be filming like this year. So he does have some stuff that he's working on. Andrew Lincoln saying that he wants to go back down to the basics again is kind of interesting, because Gimple has also been talking about that. He said that he wants to do some more classic Walking Dead stories for a while. So they've been talking, it seems like. That's my assumption anyways. I have no idea, but I'm assuming that they've been talking about like where they would like to go, like with the story. And I think that it makes sense that this is the next part to it. To have, variant walkers, I'm assuming, be more of the next threat to be able to bring it back down to the basics. Now, when he says bring it back down to the basics, I don't think that means like, have the apocalypse happen all over again, basically have it where they're all just struggling to survive this and that. Like, that aspect to it, you don't have to go back there again. Like, that's not, I don't think that's what they really mean, because it's kind of hard to do that with the CRM around this and that. Yes, you could wipe out certain communities and you could do certain things, but it's very hard to go back to something like that. And yes, they do have skills to survive, But the thing is like it is still very hard to survive out there. Like it's still very hard. Like you run into certain people, the certain situations that you're in. Like you just gotta think of it like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, or just any other horror movie, right? Like whatever town they're in when those things are happening, when like Jason's walking around or Freddy, like, obviously Freddy's in like people's dreams and stuff, but like whatever place they're in, it's like happening just in that town. But everywhere else in the world is like normal, right? So you just gotta kind of view it like that. In terms of telling a story, it depends on where they're going. Maybe there's a certain place that they have to go to do something. They want to help with these people because of, something happening with the CRM. They can't get there or whatever, or they're on a mission. And then they end up just, in this weird place where a bunch of stuff starts happening and it's this really cool story, right? And it takes place in this town. You can go back to sort of, the basics of everything here. I think that just makes a lot of sense. It becomes a very simple story, sort of like Daryl Dixon. Like, yes, the apocalypse is happening everywhere, but like he went to a location and he's staying there. He's not coming back, and he's not a part of the whole other part or universe, right? He's just a part of what's happening in France right now. Same with Negan and Maggie, right? Like they're in New York, although Maggie's at the Bricks, and there obviously is a bigger world connection with that show, with what's going on with the Commonwealth and all that. But you know what I mean, right? Like they can go back to the basics and focus more on the that horror element to everything here, and still keep the CRM around, still keep what they've built up in this world. They don't have to lose everything. And so obviously I've been talking about variant walkers a lot. Like that's what I've been focusing on a lot here in this video. And I think that just makes the most sense. Like what else could be the next story here? I guess there could be anything else, like maybe Andrew Lincoln, like maybe Rick and Michonne find out that there's something happening in this one location in the United States. And so they're like, well, we'll go there and go check it out. And then maybe, the CRM, like they, send them there with some CRM troops or something like that, because the CRM military is still a thing. It's just that they're more good now, right? So maybe they're going there to sort of figure out what's going on. They arrive to this place and it's a different community there that's causing a bunch of stuff. There's not a lot of connections with the Civic Republic military in terms of trying to reach back to them, right? Like maybe they lose all communication, all that, because that usually happens in like every horror movie or TV show, right? So something like that happens and then Rick is stuck in that situation. Maybe there's scientists there working on different types of walkers, and you can just sort of build up a different sort of story there, right? Or again, the variant walkers can come back from France, right? Like, I feel like that's probably where it's going to go anyways, is like the new variants being in America and being the new dominant variant. And this way you can get the reunion done with Daryl as well, right? And this way you have Rick and Daryl back together again. I think it makes sense that this is sort of where they're probably going to go now, but it's going to be much more grounded, in terms of how they do that. And they could still build it all back up again. Like, I feel like that's probably going to be what they focus on now, is bringing it back down to that simplistic survival horror where, you have them just trying to survive from variant walkers, this and that. The story is going to feel much smaller, just like in Daryl Dixon or in Dead City, right? It's not going to feel like the Ones Who Live where people are in helicopters and all that. It's going to be more surviving from walkers and this and that. And then I think once you get all the reunions and stuff out of the way, you can sort of build back up to something like an endgame series, right? Because obviously, like they're still talking about that. There's still a lot of fans wanting that. That can definitely still happen. The CRM were never a big part of that. Like the CRM also can still be a part of that, but I've never ever, like I've always said this. Maybe a long time ago I talked about the possibility of it, but like I've always believed that the CRM were never gonna fight the Commonwealth, because the Commonwealth are like 50,000 people. They don't really have a lot of like people at all compared to the CRM that are like at 200,000, right? And you just look at what the CRM has in general, it's honestly kind of insane. They have helicopters, all the military and all that. The Commonwealth just has soldiers, right? Like that's literally all they have is just soldiers. So I never really saw that happening. To me, I've always said that it was going to be the CRM versus Madame Genet and whatever's happening over there, because to me that's more of a, there's bigger powers there. Like, yes, Madame Genet, you could argue, doesn't have as many forces and people and all that as a CRM, but she has variant walkers and all of that. And I think just whatever she would be causing there, she would obviously be a villain, or obviously would be a concern for the Civic Republic military, right? Because of what she's doing. So I think that just made a lot more sense. Whereas with the Commonwealth, there's just like, there's not really anyone there. There's really no military. Didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So that's why I've always sort of thought that. And, we're still in the place where that could actually still happen, right? Like the CRM, they are still there. But yes, Major General Beale's not there anymore. But that doesn't really matter. You're going to have another major general. There's going to be another military there, but everyone's free to go now. No one has to stay there, right? So that's the only difference really at like that's it. And so when you look at it, it can still be the same exact story, but I just think that that is something for like, you know, the endgame series. That is something for like way later on. I feel like for now, it's really going to be focused more again on just what they've been talking about, just bringing it back down to the basics and focusing more on, you know, I'm guessing variant walkers. I don't think it could really be anything else because, like, I guess you could still tell a different story, but you would just have to come up with something very unique and interesting, right? Like, nothing where it's just this random group or this and that. Like, I'll still watch that, obviously, if that's what they want to do, and it's a very interesting storyline. I'll still, you know, I'll watch that, but it's got to be something that, you know, is very, very fun and that like a lot of people are going to really watch. Like, obviously we're watching Daryl Dixon in Dead City, but I just feel like for Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera to come back, it's got to be a really interesting, compelling story. And I think more specifically what it needs to be is a lot of character stuff, really focusing on building the characters and doing something different with the characters. That seems to be why Andrew Lincoln always played Rick Grimes, even going back to like season 3 and 4. I think he kept continuing on with the role because every season they would push Rick to this limit kind of thing, right? So I think they would have to do something very similar to that, which obviously I feel like for a lot of us is like, yeah, that's why we watch as well, because we want to see Rick push to this limit or in this situation sort of thing, right? So I think that it just makes sense at this point here that Variant Walkers seems to be really the place that they're going to be going with here. And I could just see it, you know, like every other character has reacted to the Variant Walkers. Every other character has seen the Variant Walkers. And I'm not talking about the variants in France, obviously, right? Like, if you think about the final season of The Walking Dead, there was some variants where they can climb and stuff, right? So a lot of characters saw that and were like, whoa, what? Right? So like Rick has been that one character, which I guess you could argue technically saw the variants in the very like first season, but the France variants are going to be different. And I want that aspect to the show. I want to see Rick in these really interesting situations. Again, like, I know you can't really tell the Whisperer story again, but like I mentioned it in yesterday's video, but like that would have been so cool to get. Like we already told a story like that, but if you can come up with a story or villains that are like very, you know, just like the Whisperers, but I don't know, like you would have to be very creative in how you tell that story, but telling like a new story, a new series based off of that, I think would be really, really exciting, right? So we'll have to wait and see where this goes here, but yeah, Andrew Lincoln does not sound done at all, and it seems like they have an idea as to where they're gonna go, and I feel like a lot of this, like whenever I hear, you know, like actors or like the showrunner like Gimple or like Andrew Lincoln or like others just in general talking about certain things like this, a lot of the time it's just set up and stuff for fans to sort of be prepared for what's coming next, right? Like they'll just sort of throw an idea out there and they want to see like how are fans going to respond to that in general, right? Like they'll just kind of say things here and there, and you don't just say stuff like this if you're not going to go back to the role, if you're not interested or thought about anything like that. So it looks like there's very early plans, like they kind of know where they're going. And I think, again, it comes back to what I said a month or two ago. They're all very interested in coming back. They all want to, but they're just waiting on the story. And that's sort of the next part here is Gimple. And I'm assuming Denai Guerrera is also going to be writing the next part of the story here. So I think that's the part that we're at right now is they're working on writing the story right now. And whenever it's finished, you know, I don't know how long it could take. It might take a year or two. It might take, I don't know when, but I think once that story is done and, you know, they're able to actually like, okay, this is really fun, I want to do this, then they'll hand it over to AMC, which, you know, at that point AMC will be like, I'm sure they'll greenlit, right? And then Rick and Michonne are coming back for this new series kind of thing, and then that's when they officially sign on and there's plans, and then they maybe even announce a release date, or I don't even know what at that point. But I think that's sort of where we're at right now. Like, yes, nothing's official, but I think it's because they're working on the story right now. And once, you know, everyone's happy with something that they like and it just feels right, then I think they'll go to AMC with it and be like, this is what we came up with. Do you like this idea? And I'm sure they're going to, because obviously a lot of the stories that they write are pretty great. And yeah, then we'll get an announcement at some point, right? And so I can see that happening and like for sure in the next 2 years, we'll get that announcement of like, yes, Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera are coming back in a new Walking Dead series. I just think it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I just think that that is what's going to happen. And I think we have to watch Daryl Dixon in Dead City to see how a lot of the world plays out and stuff like that, right? And I also think in the meantime, too, we're going to get a new series at some point. Like, I just feel like they're probably going to announce another spinoff. I just don't know exactly what, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. So anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Post all your thoughts down below. I think my next video is going to be on Daryl Dixon and talk about some of the new information there. I did actually hear that we were supposed to get the trailer soon, but I'm just kind of confused on when exactly. But the Tribeca Festival's happening this weekend. I believe it's on Saturday. Actually, I think it's happening like this week, but I'm pretty sure Daryl Dixon's premiere is happening this Saturday or something like that. Or at least this weekend. I'm not entirely sure when, but you know, afterwards we could get a premiere date, a release date or whatever, and then like a trailer of any kind. I don't know about an official trailer, but again, we'll talk about that in the Daryl Dixon video, because there's just a lot of weird information going around with that show right now, because it's like they said summer, but we don't even have a release date right now, and they have other shows airing this summer. So I'm just like, I don't know, I feel like it's been pushed off, but we don't have that confirmation yet. But this weekend, I think, or over the next week, we're going to learn a lot of new details here, and so we're just going to have to wait and see where this goes. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.